Hi guys, welcome. Today we're going to be installing this Dinan Exhaust onto my 2024 Mini Cooper Clubman John Cooper Works. So the 2024 Clubman is a little bit different than the 2021 and earlier in that this has the new B48E twin power turbo engine. And that uses a different exhaust, different downpipe, different sections. So this is a product that is designed for this, for the X1, the X2, something along those lines. So, so this is a 2024, and it's a JCW. It has the factory exhaust on it, which is a dual exhaust, and you can see that it's chrome in color. I ordered the Dinan exhaust. You get to choose between black and silver tips. I got the black tips. These are the parts that come in the box. So we've got some clamps. We've got a larger clamp. This is a mount here for the valve, some mounting hardware, the exhaust itself, and I guess this would be called like a mid pipe, right? So this is going to go from the middle of the car back to the rear, and then this is going to be kind of behind the rear tires. There is a valve in this exhaust, which is right here, that opens and closes. So basically when the car gets put into sport mode with the factory exhaust, there's a valve that opens. Same deal here. So when you put it in sport mode, it's going to open up the valve. When you take it out of sport mode and put it into the normal mode or into green mode, the valve will be closed and they will have the air flow through the muffler and out that pipe only. So you get this pipe all the time, this pipe when you've got the valve opened, and both will be flowing at the same time. Obviously you'll still get some airflow through there, but most of it's going to go straight out the back there. So, first thing I want to do is I want you to hear the factory exhaust on this car. I don't know that I've ever recorded it. It's an OEM exhaust on an OEM car, but the car is a little, it's a JCW, so it is a little spicy. It's like a, like an AMG Mercedes or a BMW M car or an Audi S car. It's got the additional horsepower, the more aggressive tune, etc., etc. So I'm going to start the car up and I'll put you back here. The camera's about 4 feet from the exhaust, so let's... So that's what the stock exhaust sounds like. Those first couple revs were in mid mode, which is where the valve is closed. The last couple revs were in sport mode, where the valve is opened. And obviously we're installing this to get a little bit better sound. I also am looking forward to the black tips and getting away from the chrome and, just something that is a little bit spicier. But this is a car that my wife drives too, right? So she has this Mercedes. That's the car that she drives every day. But like today, she came outside and said, I want to take the Clubman to work. So she jumped in the Clubman, she took that to work. And I want it to be something where the exhaust is not annoying if somebody wants to drive it, or if you want to take it on a long trip, or she wants to drive it and not sound like she's, some Honda tuner, right? So we're going to be getting this installed and just working through the plan. Basically what you have to do is you have to lift the vehicle up. You have to remove the factory exhaust from the hangers. You have to cut the factory pipe, and then you install. Where you cut the factory pipe, the new pipe slips over the end of it, and there's a clamp that goes on that. If you wanted to go back to the factory exhaust, you would use something like this to reconnect the two ends of the factory exhaust together. So there is a physical cut that needs to happen to the factory exhaust, which is really the only part that I don't love about the Dinan exhaust. We're going to reuse the factory hangers. There are new clamps, new hardware, and as you can see, there are 5 clamps here. 2 of them are for the tips. 2 of them are for the well, there's one that's for the section here, there's one that's for the section there. So we have, you know, all of the hardware that is necessary to make this system work and function properly. One thing I like about Dinan is they have very good instructions, 11-page instructions. They're the complete hardware kit, all the way down to an extension harness for the valve assembly and a bunch of zip ties for tying the wire harness up. Additional hardware that's stainless steel. You know, everything is very complete. And here's what the tip looks like. I'll show you that. So that's what's going to be on the back bumper, and it will be flush with the back, just like the factory one is. But obviously it's a much larger opening, where that's like a 2-inch, this is like a 3-inch opening. So it should have a pretty different sound signature. There aren't many companies that make an exhaust for this car. Scorpion, Miltech, a lot of the standard manufacturers that cover a lot of the BMWs, they only make this car pre life cycle impulse or pre LCI. So this would be like 2021 and earlier, because there were some changes that were made in the 2022 model year for the life cycle impulse, as they call it, or LCI, facelift for anybody that's not into BMW speak. So this will be my second mod on this car. The first was, this will be my second performance mod on the car. The first was a JB4 tuner. I do also have these Koenig wheels on it with Michelin Pilot Sport 4s. I'm running 235 width. The factory was a 215. I am also looking for an intake for this car. The only company that makes one right now is eVenturi. And I don't love the eVenturi because while it makes this factory hood scoop functional, it replaces it with a carbon fiber one. And I like the look of the car. I like how understated it is. I like that it's a sleeper, even though it's 300 and some horsepower and 4-wheel drive and does 0 to 60 in low 5s. I don't want something that is flashy. I don't want carbon exposed on the outside of the car. Even this exhaust is understated. So I'm looking for an intake that's not going to make me change out that scoop for carbon fiber. If the only choice that I have is eVenturi, eventually I'll probably pick that up and I'll get somebody to wrap it the same color of green. We put the car up on our quick jacks. If you don't have quick jacks, you can find them on sale for like $1,200, $1,300. They're actually like a really great investment if you can't do a lift. And I might do a lift here one day. Originally, when we were in this house, we were renting, and I just did the quick jacks because I didn't want to worry about cutting someone else's floor and all of that. I bought mine from Costco. I spent about $1,300 on them. They are the TL5000s, and they work on every car that we have. From the Honda Passport SUV all the way to the Mercedes. My son had a Miata for a while, and we used that. Works really, really well. So they're super solid. You know, obviously they're up on the Swiss tracks here. They don't crush the Swiss tracks. They're a really good option. And you don't have to be as high as we are. You can actually be, there's a step down. So there's two different heights. And then obviously you saw the wall mounts when I pulled them down. And this is the pump that runs them. Pretty easy to just get them hooked up. Pro tip, if you're connecting these hoses to the unit and you are for some reason unable to get it to push in, just press the down button on the pump while you're pushing it in. All it means is there's some pressure built up in the head. So let's look under the car together and see what we've got to deal with. So we have the muffler section here, factory tips. These are the factory mounts. You can see they're rubber mounts, but they're actually bolted to the chassis, which is kind of neat. Same thing on the other side. Yep, right there. And then the pipe comes back, and we have to cut the pipe like right here. So there's these dimples. After the third set of dimples, it's like 2.5 inches. They give you a measurement. That's where you have to cut it. So this will stay factory, but this is, you know, 3-inch all the way forward. The cat you can see up there. And from talking to my tuner who did my last car, he told me that the putting a high flow cat in this car doesn't really change anything in terms of performance, so we're just going to leave that alone. Also, you can see this car is super clean. It only has 2,500 miles on it, 2,700 miles on it, something like that. See our rear diff here, all the electronics. And the valved exhaust controller is right there. The first thing that we want to do actually is cut the exhaust, which is the scariest part. And then we're going to remove these two hangers, there and there, and drop this down and pull it out. So let's work on that. We're under the car. I have this really sweet Milwaukee light that works really well for this. You can just kind of put it here out of the way. And we're gonna measure 2 3/4 inches behind the last dimple. So the last dimple is right there. We're gonna measure 2 3/4 inches right here. And I obviously have safety glasses on because I'm going to be laying under a car while I'm cutting it. As somebody who has had metal pulled out of their eye by an optometrist, I'd recommend you wear safety glasses. I was actually wearing safety glasses when that happened, but this is going to be tough to cut, but we want to try to be as straight as possible. And we have a little bit of forgiveness in the clamp, but we want to try to be as straight as possible and cut all the way across. I'm using it's a Diablo 6-inch medium metal blade. Maybe a slightly shorter one would be better for this, just being honest, but I think we'll be okay here. So because blades will sometimes bind when you're cutting metal like this, I want to make sure that I kind of get through the top side first. I want the binding to be on the bottom, not on the top. I've got that cut off. It's pretty straight. Just watch your blade. Don't take it out too far. Don't push it in too much. A 4-inch blade is probably the answer for this, so you obviously get the luxury of my work. Because hindsight's always 20/20, right? So now we're going to remove these two mounts. There's one there, there's one on the other side, so we'll get those unbolted. So we got a 13 mil here. Okay. I'm gonna put this here just as something to set the exhaust on. There's actually a third exhaust hanger here, so let's take that out. All right. Okay, well, it's out, and it weighs a ton, and it was a pain. The next thing we need to do is take these mounts off. This tool makes it a lot easier. It's made by ARES. Looks like the part number is 10,001. And you just put this on the metal post. You kind of squeeze your way right off the hanger. So we're going to put this on this side. They look the same, but they might not be. Next part's removing this valve. Here's the valve. And then we also need this spring. It should just pull right off like that. And actually, I guess I didn't show you the old exhaust. So here's The old exhaust, you could see that it comes into this muffler section. That's the side with the valve, this is the side without. So it's really a choice between singles and duals. And either way, you've got some muffler section in there. So this should increase the sound quite a bit. The next thing it tells you to do is to run the power to the other side, but it's already on the right side of the car. So I don't think I need that. And here, there is at least the screws are high quality. So this goes here. So you can see I slipped on this mid pipe and basically it just slides right on. You have to rotate it as you're putting it on. So you see how this is tipped down? So you kind of have to put it on first so it's hooked over this, or pull down on this, I guess would work too. Get it on there. Then I got this mount here hooked up and it's just kind of sitting here right now, just floating. So we're going to get the actual pipe here, we're going to bolt this back in, and then we'll figure out where everything actually needs to sit. We're going to put this strap right here. Just slide that on. Because I don't know that I'm going to be able to manipulate it enough to get it on after it's hung. Probably not, actually. Got that one up. It's probably something that's easier to do with help. But we'll get it. Sometimes I like the extra challenge of trying to do something like this by myself. Alright, so I think next we want to screw in these hangers, bolt them in, 13 mil. Especially this one. Won't be able to get to it in a bit. So, I'm going to take a moment here really quick just to, while this is all kind of flopsy in here, we'll take the parts and just kind of eyeball them together like that. About where it needs to go. And then I'm going to torque, we're going to torque these bolts here and these ones here and just make sure that everything is nice and tight. And then we'll get the tips lined up, figure out where they need to be, and then kind of work our way back and forward based on that. I don't know the exact torque for these, but given that they're 18mm bolts, I'm going to do 100 foot-pounds. That feels appropriate. So making sure that I have clearance everywhere, and it looks like I do, which is good. This is going to have a little pivot to it until this clamp is tightened down. I'm just getting this started. There's still some movement available here, but I want to get the tips lined up and get everything looking good. I'm gonna grab some gloves. When we get the tip on. So, looking at where the tips are and the amount of pipe that you can see, I think we want to be, we want to get the exhaust as far forward as possible. So, I'm going to reach in there and get this tightened up. But I think the goal is going to be get these as close as possible closed. High spot here, we're making it so that it's just flush with that. Clocking the word Dinan, so the center of the N is right there. Maybe a little bit, because the I is smaller than the A, so maybe like right there. Yeah. That's the ticket. And then tighten this up. Okay. Get the exhaust power plugged in. So there's a harness right here that's kind of clipped in behind the bumper. So I'm gonna unclip that. I'll show you this on camera. So the harness plugged in right here. The only thing I had to do was unclip this, which was like right here. And then I'm just going to zip tie this up to the harness that's already here. So what I'm going to do at this point, everything is tight. I'm going to unwrap this. I'm going to grab some spray to clean all of this off. This is nice and tight. This is tight. This is tight. Everything looks good. All right. There's Traceless here, which is basically paint thinner. Stuff's not sexually like flammable. You could just light it on fire. I think it might be more flammable than lighter fluid or gasoline, honestly. Let's mess around with some of these Clean towels. Man, this one is awesome. It's like a polishing / wax removal towel. And I realize I'm ruining it. I've got some brake dust on the other side of it, so it's already kind of screwed up to begin with. But looks good. All right. Last thing I'm going to do is those bolts are kind of long on the clamp, so I'm going to get a deep 15 and just kind of go over with a hand ratchet. All right, so we got the exhaust installed. It's lined up. We're flush with this high point right there. The tips are as even and as straight as they could be. And then the gaps are consistent. They're not exactly centered in the holes, but they're consistent side to side, as you can see, right? And then underneath, we've got everything wiped off. All of our mounts tight, our clamps are tight, these are rolled out of the way, that's plugged in, everything looks great. So, I think we're ready to start it. seems excessive. Well, all right, so all in all, I think it's what we were looking for, right? It's that reserved sound. It's got a little bit of snap, a little bit of crackle when you're in the mid mode or the valve closed mode. Mid is normal on a Mini. And then in sport mode, it wakes up and it's loud. So we're gonna just wipe this off, let all this water and condensation run through, and then we'll drop it off the lift and we'll take it for a ride. But man, I think it sounds good. There we are. Take this for a ride. I don't have my mount, so I'm just gonna hold the camera. Way different on idle. Wow. All right. All right, so mid kind of sounds like sport used to. So valve closed. It sounds like when the valve used to be open, which makes sense. We've got a muffler, but a tire flowing, right? Valve closed is the new valve open. When you're not on it, like I'm doing 70 miles an hour right now, and you know, 6th gear, it's 2,000 RPM, super quiet, sounds good. If I flip it into sports, you can hear it open up. Now the car downshifted too at the same time because it's now sport. Sounds good. It sounds really good. It's got a nice throaty noise to it. It's not overly poppy. I was worried about that. My F56, the coupe, the two-door, it's really poppy when you downshift. You know, and when you're in mid mode, it doesn't do that, but in sport, it does. And I don't want this to be annoying. It sounds good. It sounds really, really good, actually. I like it quite a bit. Pretty happy that I did. Sounds good. Sounds real good. It's got a little bit of a whistly sound, like a whoosh sound. I can hear when I'm on it. So to wrap up the exhaust video, it's been about a week and a half since I installed the exhaust originally, and I put 300 miles on this car the other day. I had to drive from my house to Bakersfield and back, so that's a 2-lane highway, some areas of actual like multi-lane highway, so varied speed from 55 to 75 miles an hour. What I found was that it was totally livable. In mid mode or green mode, which is the base mode for the Mini, with the valve closed, I found that it's only slightly louder than stock. But with the valves opened, I found that it's actually a fair amount louder than stock, but really only when you're on it. And we're talking about like between 4,000 and 7,000 RPMs. Anything below that, it really is very, very quiet and very livable. With the car having an 8-speed transmission and such a high top speed in 8th gear, even when you're in cruise control at 75 miles an hour, even in sport mode where it might be downshifted slightly to give you a little bit of extra acceleration when you stomp on it, there's just no drone. There's no raspiness. It's not annoying in any way. I didn't at any point during my trip think, wow, this is just a little bit too loud, or this is just a little bit much. Even compared to my JCW with the factory exhaust, my two-door coupe, this is less like, look at me. With that car, it has these pops and bangs when you get off of it in sport mode, and that was factory. It's also that way with the tune. It's because of the aftermarket downpipe, honestly, it got a little bit more aggressive. But, you know, that has this over rev or overrun where it's dumping a little bit of fuel into the exhaust to make these pops and bangs, and this just doesn't really have that. It sounds really good. It's got a nice throaty noise. When you're on it, you can tell that there's an aftermarket exhaust, but I can totally control whether the car is loud or not, and it's very easy to live with. Now, I went with Dinan. I realized that there are a ton of manufacturers not all of them make exhaust for this particular car, but the reason I chose Dinan is because Dinan has always been kind of an OEM plus company when it comes to BMW. And what I mean by that is, you know, Holley owns MSD, Dinan, and APR. And Dinan was always the BMW/Mini brand, so the BMW group. And you could go to many BMW dealerships, even the one local to me, walk in and you could go into their accessory center and you could buy Dinan parts from the BMW dealership in a lot of cases. They would even sell Dinan parts that kept your warranty intact, like computer tunes and different things like that, that kept a factory warranty. And that was really a cool thing. APR did the same thing for the Volkswagen group. So I used to have an APR tuned Volkswagen Golf R. I also had a bunch of other APR parts on that, you know, shifter and intake and, you know, all kinds of different stuff. So I've always kind of liked Dinan because I felt they were like safe, right? And when we're playing around with you know, in this case, a $50,000 car, and we're modifying a $50,000 car. Like, this is an asset. It's got a loan on it. You know, it's something that I don't want to screw up and I don't want to break, right? And it was the same thing with my Golf R back in the day. You know, that was a $20-something thousand car at the time when I bought it used, and, you know, I wanted it to last, right? So I like the safety of Dinan. I also like that Dinan is kind of like OEM plus. It's just slightly more than OEM, but it's got that OEM fit and finish and design to it. So, you know, you might be leaving some performance on the table with a brand like Dinan or a brand like APR, but I do like the safety, or the perceived safety, that I feel when I install those parts on the car. Now, I ordered this. I waited 3 months for it to come in. I talked to Dinan about it along the way because they actually pushed my delivery date. So I ordered it in like late July. The expected delivery date was September when I placed the order. And then in September, it got pushed to October. Now, I will say that I received it about a week before the expected shipment date. So they actually did push it up a little bit too. But when I talked to Dinan, they said, well, you know, we build these to order, but we build a bunch of them at the same time. So we had orders for 3, we built 12. So we have some in inventory once yours ship, but you know, these were, they were something that was out of stock, and they had some parts issues in getting some sort of pipe or tip or something along those lines, was what they told me, and it just delayed the order. So it shipped out, it arrived unscathed, no scratches, no dents, no dings on, you know, the tips or anything like that that's visible. The stainless steel pipes are, you know, pretty normal and hard to really damage. I don't have any rattles. I don't have any fitment issues. I don't have any raspiness. The one thing that I will say is, you know, it's a over $1,000 exhaust. It would be really nice if they would give you, because you have to cut the factory exhaust in order to take it off, it would be nice if they gave you some sort of coupler to return your car to stock when you were done. Now, I realize there is a coupler that is part of the kit that could be used to do that. But in order to do that, you kind of render the kit as not usable either. So what I mean by that is the Dinan exhaust is 2 parts, and you're cutting your mid pipe about halfway down, like right before the rear axle, and you're joining that to a new mid pipe, and then there's a coupler that goes between the new mid pipe and the muffler section near the rear of the car. And that coupler could simply be used to reconnect your factory exhaust at the place you cut it. It's the same style of pipe, it's the same diameter of pipe, it would work just fine for that. I would really like it if they would include one of those in the box as an extra thing, even if it raised the cost of the exhaust by $20, $30, $50. It would just be nice to be able to say, okay, well, I've got this vehicle that is, you know, something I'm going to own for 3 years, 5 years, something along those lines. And when I go to sell it, or trade it in. I want to return the car to stock and I want to sell the exhaust on the secondary market to somebody else who might have a similar vehicle. Well, I would like to be able to pull this off, put my exhaust back together, put a coupler on it, have the exhaust be normal and OEM, and then, you know, have this aftermarket exhaust that I could sell. That would be nice. I would really appreciate that. Even if they made it a drop-down box on the website, like when you're ordering it, just like they have the black tips or silver tips, do you want a coupler to reconnect your OEM exhaust if you were to take this off? That would be nice. It's nitpicky, it's minor, it's just something that I would like to see. As far as fitment is concerned, I think fitment is excellent. I did make it so that the tips are centered with each other. So in the back bumper, there's obviously an opening, and then inside that there is a tip. Now the tip isn't centered in the opening, but the two tips are symmetric to each other. And what I mean by that is the gap between the tip and the inside of the bumper is slightly smaller than the gap between the tip and the outside of the bumper, but both of them are symmetric and centered with each other. I don't have any issues with the gap. I haven't had any issues with melting or heat or smells or anything like that in driving this 300 miles. It's been super solid and I'm really, really happy with it. So I would honestly recommend it to anybody that has a Clubman, especially if you're looking for something that is going to be a little bit more reserved. This obviously fits the X1 and X2 as well. So if you are driving one of those platforms and you're interested in it, I think I could recommend it to you as well. Although your installation and your fitment might be slightly different than mine, I think that it's similar enough that I can feel comfortable doing it because they do have the same drivetrain and they do have the same engine from the factory. So I'm 99% confident that it's going to fit the same for you. So that's all I have for today. Super happy with it. Love the car. It's making the car even better. It's making me feel better about getting rid of my two-door, which is going to happen at some point soon. And then the next thing I'm looking for is an intake. As far as an intake is concerned, I'm looking for something that can stay under the hood, that can increase induction noise and performance a little bit, and that doesn't put a carbon fiber scoop in the center of my hood. If I end up having to buy an even Venturi, then I probably will try to get that scoop wrapped or painted to match my car, and hopefully I could work something out with that. But Dinan told me they are working on an intake for this, so I'm probably just going to hang out for a couple of months, wait and see what comes up, and then go from there. So anyway, thank you for watching today. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I will do some drive-by, fly-by clips at some point in the future on another video. But I wanted to, this is the installation and the fitment of the exhaust and just my overall review of it, having had it for a week and a half and putting a reasonable amount of miles, 300 miles on it. It's pretty average for somebody in a week. I did it all in one day though. So thank you. Have a great day.